G'day everybody. Spittin Chips here, how are you? It's good to be back. Good music to start off with. Nice bit of way to bring it in. Let's just listen for a bit. This is the perfect time to ride. All you riders out there, be safe. Bit crazy on the roads these days. Spoke to a police officer one time, a copper, and he said 99% of motorcycle crashes, incidents, accidents are the motorcyclist's fault. The reason for this was he needs to always, or she needs to be always one step ahead of everybody else on the road, because they're going to run through stop signs, not check blind spots, and everything else. It's interesting riding on these roads and you see the wealth of this country. If you're somebody that's travelled outside the country, this really shows you the wealth. Look at this. There's not really one shit box around. Just so you know, g'day everyone, this is Spittin Chips. You can find my YouTube channel on Spittin Chips, Spittin Chips. That's at Spittin Chippers, because Spittin Chips was taken. If you go onto my channel, you go to the live section, you'll see all the live videos I've done so far, and also the one added video. So soon I'll be adding all these live videos to the general videos section, so you got a bit of an idea what you can do there. Also, so if you scroll down to here, this is the comments section, and this is regarding the description of the video. And then also here is if you would like to do a donation or a tip to the channel, it's more than welcome. Bit of information here about if you would like to get into the crypto space, how you would like to do it, and just a disclaimer here. Just please take note, this is an entertainment channel only. So let's get into today. Today I've got a lot. I really do have a lot to show you, and a lot's happening in Australia at the moment, especially the world. I mean, I just want to let you know this might go for an hour or two. A lot of my videos go for quite a long time, so being a live streaming, you can watch this another time because it will be there. It will be uploaded to the channel, so you can carry on. You can also speed up the rate at which the channel plays, which if things seem to be a bit slow for you, or you want to slow it down, it's too quick, you can also do that on the channel. That's down in the section below where you're doing your like and subscribe. Remember to do that as well, and please share. Let's get the information out there. So I am concerned, and the reason I'm concerned is that anybody that voted for Labor, the Greens, or any similar parties like that who are considered to be woke, progressive, non-misogynist, very woke, very feminist, and everything else, you guys need to wake up. You need to wake up, and you need to pull your socks up, and you need to not be offended. Try not to be offended by anything that gets played here, and just have an open mind. It's good to view things from a different perspective, or a perspective. And there's, at the end of it, I hope you're going to grasp it. If you are pro-vaccinations and pro-shutting the Australian economy down, the world down, you are pretty much one of the leading causes of what we're going through at the moment with the housing shortage and the economy. So, I'm doing my part just to say, hey, this is all out here. I can give you my perspective. My perspective is that, yes, I'm very happy for all immigrants here that have made it to the country of Australia. I respect you, and well done. Immigration is good, though we must respect what the country can afford to support. And this goes from infrastructure to finance to available jobs, and how well the GDP is actually progressing at this present time. Also, you've got to take into consideration that do you assimilate with the current country's values? So for me, yes, I'm happy for immigration to continue, though we need to scale it back heavily for a period of time and then resume it. Purely because there's no way out of this. It's just going to get worse. That's my strong opinion. Scale it back heavy, reassess, stop wasting so much money in the government. It's pretty freaking simple. A line where all these visas are getting out and just temporary suspend them. I'm very sorry. Unfortunately, it's a big money-making racket for the Australian government. And yeah, that's maybe the reason why so many people are coming in the mail. Ever seen how much an Australian passport costs compared to other countries in the world? Yeah, a few times more than other countries in the world. And now we're actually fallen several tiers below other countries. And we also have heavily devaluated our currency through massive amounts of quantitative easing. But it wouldn't be labelled as that. It would be labelled as just, supporting the general people, government services, welfare. We can dig deep into that more later, but let's just dive straight into some videos. All right, here we go. So this is the current bloke all you guys voted in. Well done. He's doing a great job, hey? Yeah. This is him saying g'day. There you go, no worries. Don't usually give like a handshake or anything like that. It's not very traditional. to give a handshake in Australia, isn't it? You know, if anybody doesn't know where a handshake comes from, it went back in the day of where you would draw your sword out. If you were approaching somebody, you would handshake them. So your hand is nowhere near your sword, and it's saying, "I come in peace, friend." And this has been handed out for generations, and it's a typical thing you would do in Australia. You go, "G'day, mate, how are you? Nice to meet you. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure doing business. It was a pleasure making your acquaintance. Thank you very much." And, you know, this is how
There you go, no worries.
Let's carry on. I really enjoyed this analogy. It's just an alternative, purely because a lot of you guys out there, unfortunately, if a person of my makeup, complexion, voice would say anything on this subject, you'd be heavily labeling me as something. So let's just have a listen to this one.
This is the Aussie immigration complex, and this is just my humble 2 cents opinion. So don't roast me too out in the comments. So at the moment, we have our federal government, which is the cinema over here, represented by someone behind the counter selling tickets. And over here is our country, represented by a movie. The movie is called Australia. Now, obviously, when you go see a movie at Event Cinema or Hoyts, for example, the seats are quite limited. And these seats are a metaphor for our limited housing. Now, obviously, some of us are already sitting in one of these seats. Either we have purchased the seats, which means we own the seat, or we have a mortgage against the seat, or some of us are renting these seats, for example, paying rent. Now, talking from a migrant's perspective, for example, I'm a migrant myself, my families are migrants. The normal process is that, you know, we hear that Australia is the next biggest new movie, the next biggest blockbuster. We can't wait to line up at the cinema to watch this movie. So what happens, naturally, all over the world, obviously non-Australians would line up at the cinemas to purchase tickets to then see this new movie called Australia. And obviously, the person who's selling the ticket, because, you know, the status over here is like, well, there's still seats available. You can go in. And then people line up, and then they buy tickets, and they go in. But then what happens is, due to limited housing, limited seats, limited space, the cinema is packed with people, and the status now is full. But what happens if the mofo sitting behind the cinema counter continues to sell tickets to let people in? Like, people are still lining up. This mofo, the dorky, pimple, teenage mindset politician, decides to keep selling tickets so people keep coming in to watch this bloody movie called Australia. Now, what happens is the existing people that are watching this beautiful movie called Australia, they were fine before, but then more people come in, and then, you know, people are walking in front of the fucking movie and going, yalla, yalla, and another one is like, oh, baby, habibi, and another one is like, ni hao ma, blah, 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 and then the people over here were like, who are these motherfuckers? Why are you guys blocking the screen? While I'm sitting at the back over here because I can't afford gold class because, you know, I'm not VIP. I'm just like a middle class Australian having a fucking rant. And then next to me is an Indian mate. And he's like, brother, do not say that you are Chinese. Those people are Chinese. Do not say that you came from immigration too. And while I'm sitting over here with my large size popcorn, which I bought at the candy store, which used to cost $5 many years ago, but now due to inflation is now $20, which I'm really pissed off already. I remember back then, I came here on the premise that it wasn't full, it wasn't packed, and there were people in front of my fucking face while I'm trying to enjoy this movie called Australia. I lined up, I bought the tickets, I came in. I'm having a rant because the place is full. There shouldn't be more people coming in. And suddenly no one's enjoying this movie called Australia anymore, right? In the cinemas, everyone's bickering, right? I'm having a fight with this Indian mate. Over here, Lebo's having a fight with another Italian. Greek's having a fight with the Chinese. Whatever it is, everyone's bickering over here. And while we're doing this, old mate at the fucking cinema is then walking back to the back office over here, counting his stash. Look how many fucking tickets I've sold. Man, I'm going to make bang before I retire. In the midst of this guy's evil laughter and the bickering of the existing locals in the cinema, the new residents that come into Australia, because they are promised, you know, this ticket, you can watch the beautiful Australia, they come in and go, what the fuck is happening? Then we have a new migrant coming in and go like, hey, excuse me, can I sit down? You know, I'm new here. And the person sitting down over here is like, fuck off, mate, you dickhead. And then this new migrant over here gets a bit scared and runs to another migrant and goes, oh my God, these people over here are racist. As we slowly zoom back out in a bird's eye view, we start to identify the Aussie immigration complex. We start to see the people in this cinema, regardless of those who have a seat or those who do not have a seat, they all have the intention to watch this beautiful movie called Australia. That is their intention. And instead of hating on each other and blaming each other for the limited seating in the cinema while we're trying to watch this movie called Australia and be divided by our cultural differences, let's just agree we all got duped by this cunt over here. All right? This cunt is still selling tickets, and this cunt is raising prices at the candy store. This cunt always wants us to be divided, fighting against each other so that we do not pay attention to what they're really doing, making bank every day at the back office. Well, they keep selling tickets to the potential moviegoers of the world, which watch a trailer of Australia and go, wow, I want to come into this country. But they do not know that we're full. We have limited housing, limited seats. In my own humble opinion, the only way to solve the Aussie immigration complex is for those who have a seat, every person stand up, boom, 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 and align with those who are walking around. Let's together march towards the entrance, and the mass mob over here overthrows this motherfucker over here and burn this motherfucking cinema down. Yeah, I know it's kind of dystopian, dramatic, but you know, what other solution do we have? Jump in the comments. Let me know. Is this the wrong way of thinking about immigration? So I call this the Aussie immigration complex.
I fucking love that. That is brilliant. Yeah. I mean, I don't really call for the end, but I definitely call on. Definitely call on for there to be some kind of assessment into going, what is happening, why is this happening, and is this the next big distraction? Is this really why would anybody that's made it to this level of governing of this country cause such a situation? And I can't honestly believe that the assessors, whoever they are, because obviously they have multiple people that give information, would go, yeah, nah, it's all good, bring them in, she'll be right. I just can't understand it at all. So for me, there's a serious issue with the economy, with the GDP. Ever since COVID and the shutdown, everybody wants it because everybody was too scared, unfortunately. But, you followed the government rules, but unfortunately, they lied. They deceived you, and you will believe them. Unfortunately, I'm a bit sad that you will believe them, but you did, because you've been honourable Australian citizens, and you shut down the country, and you got all money paid out to you, and you inflated the country, and there's no growth, there's no productivity. So they're like, what do I do? Well, how about we cause the next great crisis and distract you from that last issue, which is the country's going downhill and we're not making anything. Let's do another crisis to distract you from that crisis, which is, this crisis. And then on top of that, instead of like it being hey, let's raise awareness of the situation, we're going to divide you because the white person hates you or the other ethnic groups hate you. Whereas it's not like that at all, guys, because you're here. If that was the case, you wouldn't be coming to this country at all. And I truly believe the majority of people out there know that everyone here gives you fair go. Yeah, there's the odd dickhead, but the majority of people get along. If you don't cause any harm to anybody else or force your agenda and follow the Australian ways, have a go and be honest and take care of the environment and take care of your taxes. Don't tax avoid, because we want to make sure this country grows and gets better. We're all invested into it. So let's move on to the next thing. So do you know how there was an Australian mass protest recently? and the mass media labelled it as something. Well, this is a bloke, Aboriginal, and there's a place in Melbourne, they have this area, and he's talking about there were several punch up and blues and everything else with certain people. They labelled them as Nazis. Well, let's listen to his take of the situation.
And then they all decided to go and chase after him, and they all decided to go and chase after him, and they managed to catch him, and then a big fight went on, and they were knocking one another out and everything. And then after that, those fellas, they all took off. It was only a matter of time. That's when the Nazis came, because they went back into the city and told them what happened, and then 60 of them came here and attacked the entire camp. That was done because of the idiots inside the camp that caused that. Chasing after people. We're not here to chase after people. And then,
so what he's saying is there's those group Aboriginal people, I'm presuming, they were chasing after ordinary citizens that were walking around with Australian flag, being patriotic. Now, you can't be like that anymore in this country as well. Why? Well, there's a reason. Get rid of a symbol of national pride, a thing that everybody unites under and everybody displaces. You know, it's easy to control people when you do that. So here's old mate Aboriginal elder, well, seems to be an Aboriginal elder to me, and he's talking about how there was young people attacking ordinary Australians that were waving a flag and parading around. They did it twice, and on the second time, that person went into the city and started saying, look, we're getting attacked by these people just for waving the flag. They came back and they had a blue.
they all decided to go and chase after him, and they managed to catch him, and then a big fight went on, and they were knocking one another out and everything. And then after that, those fellas, they all took off. It was only a matter of time. That's when the Nazis came, because they went back into the city and told them what happened, and then 60 of them came here and attacked the entire camp. That was done because of the idiots inside the camp that caused that. Chasing after people. We're not here to chase after people. And then,
so there was actually further information to this video, this TikTok, and actually he explained that originally these Nazis, as they want to label them, could be labelled as Australian patriots, came into the area and they had conversations with them, and these people actually left calmly and civilly. There was never any issues. But because they then proceeded to attack normal people that were very patriotic, that happened. And what was portrayed on the media? Wow, you tell me. All right, so let's move on to the next piece of beautiful stuff. I know maybe, I hope the people that are watching this are patriots and they like this person. If not, please just take the time, listen, just have some open ears, because you know this is interesting stuff. For a while, you don't really hear anything useful coming out of Parliament, and this is the time to listen.
On Sunday, One Nation senators and the member for Kennedy were the only members in this parliament who defied the far left and the mainstream media to stand with many thousands of Australians protesting mass migration. Yesterday, the hateful Greens tried to force the Senate to condemn these everyday Australians marching under their national flag.
Resume your seat, please. On a point of order, Senator McKim.
This is the part that agitates me to a degree, but I suppose it's Parliament and it's debating. But they continuously interrupt and present these arguments that whatever she's presenting is against what you're allowed to present. And could you imagine if you were given a speech and every so often someone interjected? You lose your track, you lose your momentum, you lose the delivery, and all the time you only have an allocated amount of time to give a speech, so they just wind it down.
Thanks very much, Acting Deputy President. The point of order is relevant. Senator Faruqi needs to mount an argument as to why.
So this is a Greens member, you can see. These people, whoever voted these in, You may have good intentions, but you are ruining this country.
Standing orders should be suspended. That is the motion she has put. And in fact, she is not mounting that kind of an argument. She's engaging in a political attack which is not relevant to the question before the chair.
I would think on the surface, Senator McKim, that these speeches are always wide-ranging, but I will give Senator Hanson the opportunity to continue and monitor. Senator Hanson.
Thank you very much. Yes, wanting to shut down the voice for Australians because the thousands of Australians that were in unison together to stand up for their flag, their country, and against mass migration. And the motion that was moved yesterday was disgraceful. They claimed these Australians were led by neo-Nazis and far-right extremists. They claimed these peaceful demonstrations were rampages and even claimed that the country will never be safe unless these everyday, normal, ordinary Australians were forced forever silence. I don't think anything illustrates the hypocrisy and ignorance of the hateful Greens better than their motion. They fall over themselves to encourage and attend protests in support of Middle Eastern terrorism.
Senator Hanson, I will ask you to resume your seat. Senator McKim on a point of order.
Thank you. A point of order on two matters. Firstly, once again, on relevance. Senator Hanson is not addressing urgency and whether or not the standing orders should be suspended. Secondly, Standing Order 193.3, which prevents personal reflection on other members of this chamber. Senator Hanson is clearly in breach of that standing order.
Senator McKim, just to address your point of order, I don't see a problem, but what I will do for you is I'll consult the clerk. Thank you. Senator Hanson, you do have the call, but I would just let you know that if we dig a bit deeper and reflect on senators, then I will have to address that. Senator Hanson.
Thank you very much, but I never named anyone.
No, you didn't.
See, the whole fact is, it hurts when, you actually call them out. And reflecting on the last comments, Senator McKim was quite happy to have, the Greens are constantly having to go at One Nation all the time. But the whole fact is they're very concerned about this they're delighted to join calls for the destruction of Israel. They deliberately ignore how these ugly, violent protests target Jewish Australians.
So just on that, I'm not in support of Israel. I'm not in support of Palestine. I'm neutral. And for me, I don't think Australia should get involved with anything. We should say war is not good, try to do it through speech and debate, but picking sides I think is a bad thing. But furthermore, I've got nothing against Israelis and Palestinians being in this country as long as they adhere to our rules and the way to be. Now, what I see is there are a lot of intimidation going on. And it's going beyond where it's more patriotic to support either of those than to be an Australian. So, the thing about coming to Australia is that you have to, I believe, surrender all your other priorities and embrace the Australia that is here, which is so good. So let's continue.
And have led directly to rising anti-Semitism in the country. And that's because they're supporting this disgusting agenda. When Australians exercise their rights to express their opposition to the Greens' radical far-left agenda, as they did yesterday, the Greens play the victim. It's because the Greens despise the very freedoms that Australians exercised on Sunday and want those freedoms taken away from the Australian people.
Sorry, Senator Hanson, I will ask you to resume your seat. Senator McKim on a point of order.
Again, stop the speech.
It's 193.3 on reflecting on other members. You were very clear in your direction that you gave to Senator Hanson, saying that if she continued to do that, you'd need to pull her up. Well, she is continuing to do that, and I invite you to pull her up.
Senator McKim, I did listen intently to Senator Hanson, and I heard her refer to a political party. I didn't hear any senators that were named. And sitting in this chair for many times, I've heard many senators reflect on parties in this chamber without actually attacking personally a senator. Senator McKim, I don't see a point of order, but I will give Senator Hanson the call. Senator Hanson.
Thank you very much. Well, again, it's all right to have a go at the Labor Party over the climate change and mention Labor Party, but you don't like to cop it back. And the fact is, why I'm saying this is that all the leaders of the political party had their say yesterday with regards to the Senator Faruqi's notice of motion yesterday, but I was denied that right. I was denied the right because you shut it down. They purposely did it. And that's why I'm going to have my say today on behalf of the Australian people. And you're only doing it all the time just to run down the time through you, the chair, because Senator McKim doesn't want me to get my message out to the Australian people. So they're using this all the time to shut down my time of having saying what I need to say.
Senator Hanson, I will ask you to resume your seat. Senator McKim, on a point of order.
193.3.
So the part I loved about that, he was even scratching his own eyes going, I felt that was a sign, a telltale from his own body language, that was the chair, to indicate that's exactly what's happening. And I'm also getting frustrated by it. It's almost undemocratic what they're doing. But I don't know, personally, I don't know of any way this can get prevented unless there is some kind of law that prevents it. So let's continue.
Senator Hanson, A, has directly named me. Secondly, she has impugned a motive to my actions which is untrue, and I ask you to require her to withdraw that.
Senator McKim, once again, I don't see the issue you are raising, and you are, like myself, a long-time warrior in this chamber who have quite often good debates across the chamber. I didn't see anything, or didn't hear anything, I should say, from Senator Hanson that I thought would be out of order. I will go back to Senator Hanson to give her the call, and I just say that she has 2 minutes and 16 seconds left, so it's not long now. Senator Hanson.
Thank you. Well, it's horrifying how it must have been seen to them to see so many Australian flags on display yesterday in support of a strong, united nation. And the hateful Greens are deliberately misinforming and misrepresenting the Australians who marched peacefully on Sunday. And they have a goal to insult Australians standing for Australia. They've dragged out all of the usual troops and insults to marginalise and dismiss people who love their country and who don't support the Marxist anti-Australian agenda being forced on them without their consent. Australians are still free to oppose the Greens and their radical agenda. Australians are still free to oppose Labor's record immigration, driving them into homelessness. Australians are still free to oppose multiculturalism and demand a society that is cohesive and unified. Australians are still free to fly their national flag, and I encourage them, put it out there. And however, I've heard the Australian Defence Force strongly discourage serving members from marching under that flag on Sunday. They're asked to fight under it, but discouraged from marching with it. The Greens just hate the Australians have these freedoms, so they lash out in hatred at people who exercise them. One Nation senators were proud to stand with ordinary Australians who have been silenced and disenfranchised and who just want to be heard and represented. The majority of Australians don't want Labor's record high level of immigration. I hope you realise that. They see the rents going up, the longer lines to inspect rentals, and they see the Australians forced to live in tents and cars on the streets. They see the protests in support of terrorism, and they see the Greens encouraging them. They see the good values which built and defended this nation being eroded before their eyes. They see the very character and identity of Australia being perverted. We want our country back. They want their country back. And as they said to me yesterday, and I'm so proud to see that at least a member of Parliament actually turned up. I'm not by myself. I was accompanied by Senator Roberts and Senator Tyron Whitten, who actually accompanied me. And the Australian people are so proud to see that we took the time. The others didn't turn up because you know what? They know how much they hate you because of the policies you're imposing on them.
Senator Hanson, your time has expired.
So you may hear a few words there. One of them is Marxism. And Marxism is from communism. He invented it, from my knowledge. And the issues with communism is that, well, you can look a little bit into China, but it was more so in the USSR, which is former, the Soviet Russia. Russia's more reformed these days. Though communism means that everyone is equal and you're pretty much doing away with capitalism, but more so that you live off the state. And the issue we're having in Australia is that a lot of the work that's being done is primarily being funded by the country, which means we don't have private enterprises, which means where does the money come from? So it comes from our exports, and it comes purely from exports. And then tourism is the two things. So both of those are just dropping heavily. And because, we're a generous country and we believe on our values that the country was built on, we believe that you should take care of people that require assistance. But the problem is it's gone well beyond that. So we have money that we don't have, which means we're creating this money, which means we're further deflating the value of our currency to support this. One of those clear examples is NDIS. NDIS is one of the main contributors to the GDP. All right.
Hanson. I seek leave to move a motion relating to the Australian flag as circulated.
Is leave granted? Leave is not granted. Senator Hanson.
Pursuant to contingent notice standing in my name, I move that so much of the standing orders be suspended as would prevent me moving a motion to provide for the consideration of the matter, namely a motion to give precedence to a motion relating to the Australian flag. We had.
I love her. She's a bit of a rebel.
I've got to say, Senator Nampijinpa Price wore the flag in this chamber today. Of all days, it is our Australian Flag Day. Yeah. For 124 years, since 1901, that flag has been flying. And yet on this special day, it was actually denied by the Greens, who stood up and said it should not be worn. It is not a prop. The Australian flag flies in our chamber.
Senator Hanson, please just take your seat for a moment. Minister Gallagher.
See what she was referring to? There's our Australian flag in the chamber. And there's the Aboriginals flag, but obviously they even accept this is the country. This is the flag of the country. This is the Australian flag of this is the Aboriginal flag of the Aboriginal people. This is the Torres Strait flag of the Torres Strait people. But they accept, both of those accept, this is the Australian flag for Australia. And on National Flag Day, Jacinta, which is an Aboriginal representative, couldn't wear that flag in Parliament.
Just on under Standing Order 194 on relevance, this debate, as I understand it, is a debate about why the urgency for suspending standing orders. It's not to debate the substantive point that's been raised by the motion. And I
another person from the Greens or Liberal,
thank
not Liberal,
you,
Labor.
Minister. That's correct. So, Senator Hanson, you sought leave, and leave was not allowed. And Minister Gallagher has pointed out you need to now talk about why you think the suspension is necessary. And further, Senator Hanson, I remind you
I'll
of
just
the
play this a bit further
ruling
just to see
the
what
Deputy
she does.
President arrived at today, which I have upheld, which is no flags to be worn in the chamber until the matter has been
she's
resolved
wearing
by
the flag.
the Procedures Committee. So I'd ask you to take the flag off.
Tell her that she can't wear the flag. And she's wearing
Senator Hanson, this is a ruling that the Deputy President has made. I upheld that order. I told I informed the chamber just before question time.
You could watch that one a little bit more if you want to. That just cracked me. All right. This is Jacinta.
National Flag Day.
Senator Nampijinpa Price. Thank you, Acting President. Today is National Flag Day. Australia's first Prime Minister, Edmund Barton, announced a competition to design our federal flag on 29th of April 1901. Despite only 32 days to submit designs, more than 32,000 entries were received. 5 entrants who submitted similar designs were declared equal winners and shared in the £200 prize. They were Ivor Evans, Leslie Hawkins, Egbert Nuttall, Annie Dorrington and William Stevens. How fitting that a schoolboy, an optician's apprentice, an architect, an artist and a ship's officer had the same vision for our national flag. How fitting that the flag to represent the people of Australia was designed by Australian people. On the 3rd of September 1901, our national flag was first flown over the dome of Melbourne's Exhibition Building, the site of our first Commonwealth Parliament. The Brisbane Courier captured the sentiment of that moment, stating, "Nationhood is better for the concrete expression, and nothing will stir up enthusiasm or rouse the sense of regard for the country in which we live like a constant sight of the flag of Australia." It wasn't until 1953 that the Parliament passed legislation to formalise what had become the routine practice of flying the national flag. So what of our national flag's symbols? There's the constellation of 5 stars, the Southern Cross, a reminder of our unique place in the world and the common geography Australians share. My elders from a tiny community near Tennant Creek have spoken about how the Southern Cross is part of dreaming, or Jukurupa. So, contrary to the views of activists, Indigenous Australians certainly are represented by our national flag. There's the Union Jack, a reminder of our British heritage and the Christian ethos that forged a modern nation. And there's the 7-pointed Commonwealth or Federation Star, 6 points for our 6 states and a 7th point for our territories, a reminder of our unity. Together, these symbols remind us of our nation's history and the contributions of generations of Australians, of the Indigenous Australians who knew and cared for the land, of the British settlers who gifted us the institutions and ideas that have underpinned democracy, modernity and progress, of the farmers, miners, labourers, builders, manufacturers and constitutional drafters who transformed colonies into a federated country, of the soldiers, sailors and airmen who served to defend our nation and defeat evil, including more than 103,000 who gave their lives, of the migrants who arrived after the Second World War and in the decades after to this day, who embraced our values, helped build our nation and became cherished Australians. When we look at our flag, we remember our history in the round. Yes, we remember the dark chapters, like the mistreatment of Indigenous Australians and returned Vietnam veterans. But we also recognise that our achievements and successes far outweigh our wrongdoings and failures. Australia was formed without civil war or the level of bloodshed most other countries.
You know, that part almost brings a tear to your eye. To hear that acknowledgement articulated so well. She deserves so much respect and so much more respect. And I hope a lot of people respect her and support her. I certainly do. Well done.
Have known. We haven't experienced the enduring enmities of difference or separatism that have beset other nations. A defining national achievement has been the weaving together of Indigenous, British and broader migrant threads of our story. Each bestows an inheritance. Today, we Australians naturally have many differences. Differences of where we live and work, differences of ancestry and heritage, differences of faith and fellowship, differences of age and gender, differences of opinion. Despite these differences, our flag reminds us that we're united by our common values. We're aspirational, egalitarian and compassionate. We believe in reward for hard work. We treasure individual freedom. We respect the rule of law. We want our nation to be defended. We have a sense of duty to those we love, to our families, to our communities, and to our nation. Our national flag represents so much. Our history, story, geography, resources, people, mateship, deeds, sacrifices, institutions, traditions, values, unity, loyalty, and patriotism. Our national flag signifies our common citizenship and fellowship that makes strangers acquaintances. Our national flag is for times of celebration and times of commemoration. And as historian Geoffrey Blaney said, our national flag links the living and the dead. When one appreciates our national flag symbolism, it's impossible to not have a sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the fortune to live in this great southern land. Gratitude for our forebears and all they did to protect this country and ensure it prospers. With gratitude comes something more important, a sense of responsibility. Our national flag reminds us that we are the custodians of a remarkable legacy. We have a duty to hand over to the next generation a country better than the one we inherited. Our national flag reminds us of the duty of responsible citizenship, doing something that's bigger than ourselves. For example, raising a family, contributing to one's community, working hard in a chosen field, or serving the nation in some capacity. When one understands the history behind our national flag, when one values its symbolic weight, it's beyond comprehension that the burning of our national flag is not a criminal offence. Like most Australians, I was appalled by the footage of pro-Palestinian protesters burning our national flag in Melbourne on Sunday, the 3rd of August.
So the protests have got to the point of burning the Australian flag. Welcomed into the country, and now you want to burn the country that welcomed you. I don't find it personally intimidating, though it should be seen as something as deeply disrespectful.
That event coincided with a disruptive, disgraceful and divisive rally across the Sydney Harbour Bridge, a rally where some protesters chanted genocidal slogans, displayed Hamas symbols and Nazi swastikas, waved flags of terrorist organisations and carried a photograph.
Senator Price, could you please resume your seat? Senator McKim on a point of order.
Yes, thank you, President. I asked for a ruling, please, on whether the senator who's wrapped in
this is the Greens,
the national flag at the moment is contravening the standing order that prevents props. And I do want to make the point
the Greens
that if
against
it's okay
Aboriginals
for Senator Nampijinpa Price to wrap herself in this flag, I would intend to wrap myself in a Palestinian flag and come into the...
Did you just hear that? The Greens senator would prefer to wrap himself in a Palestinian flag than the Australian flag. What is happening to our country? Why was this person elected?
Chamber and exercise the same rights that Senator Nampijinpa Price is currently exercising.
Senator McKim, do you wish to respond on the point of order?
Point of order. Senator McKim chose to debate the issue rather than raise a point of order. And if we're not going to wrap ourselves in the national flag, I would ask that when you're considering your ruling, Deputy President, the flag is not a prop. It sits in our chamber right now. And so if we're going to mean it's ruled out of order over a senator's shoulder, it will have to be considering its stance in our chamber itself.
Senator, I did allow both points of order to stray into the debating point because I think this is clearly a sensitive issue, particularly on this particular day. I am going to refer this matter to the President because I think it does require consideration of the President. However, Senator Nampijinpa Price, in order not to set a precedent at this point, could I ask you please to finish your speech without the flag on your shoulders? And that way we do not, Senator Mackenzie, I will address you directly. We do not want to set a precedent in this place that would have very unfortunate consequences for the future. And I think you know what I'm talking about there, Senator McKenzie. Senator Nampa-Jimpa-Price, you have the call.
Thank you, Acting President. So disappointing from the Greens, but also so typical. You can wear a kiffa in here. Perhaps you should remove that article from you whenever you walk through these chambers for the benefit of all Australians in this country. Yes, snark all you like. It's revolting. You don't love this country the way I do, certainly not like most Australians do. So, but you would rally along these terrorist organisations, the Greens would, as you have, and probably also stand beside the photograph of the Iran's oppressive dictator.
May I just note, she has some pretty nice hair. It's quite nice, eh?
As many of you Greens have. And like your Senator Faruqi, who have called for genocide in this country against those that support Israel. A rally the Prime Minister astonishingly described.
Senator Nampa-Jimpa-Price, could you please resume your seat on a point of order, Senator McKim?
Thank you. 193.3, Standing Order 190.
Price.
Thank you, President. I rise to commend Senator Hanson, firstly, for bringing her MPI to the Senate and condemn the government for usurping the senator's opportunity to debate her motion in the most undemocratic fashion, an issue that is close to not only Senator Hanson's heart, but to my own heart. The government have every opportunity at any time to deal with this particular issue, but no, they have to hijack Senator Hanson's motion, a motion that seeks to make it illegal for any person in this country to burn our national flag, instead providing a bunch of wishy-washy words that talk about the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander flags. This motion, this issue that's before us, is about the Australian flag. And again, you vilify a senator in this place, you vilify her, you've made her out to be a racist in this country. You do everything you can to pile on her like a bunch of bullies. And here you are
Senator
again
Price,
today.
withdraw, please.
I withdraw.
Thank you.
But I stand by
On you, mate.
my words
On you. Get into
that
them.
suggest that this government is completely and utterly disgraceful in their actions and their behaviours.
Hear, hear.
They effectively
Hear, hear.
just want to silence Senator Hanson and silence decent human beings who come here who want to see better in our country. I think it's utterly, utterly disgraceful that you've taken this opportunity. And again, you stand with those
So those who don't know, during a recent protest of the Palestine Hamas supporting groups, they burnt the Australian flag. And Senator Pauline Hanson wanted to move a motion that if you burn that flag, it's illegal to do that and you will be penalised. And they shut it down. They shut down the debate and everything about it. All right. So I just wanted to move you on to some get some little bit of music on while we're listening to these statistics. Turn it up a bit. So what you're seeing here, when we talk about mass migration, we're talking about the recommended amount was supposed to be around about 200,000 per year. And we've, just off the top of my head, done something like 2 million people in 2 years, 4 years, something like that, off the top of my head. And now we're talking about the overview. So this was supplied by Tarek, and he's looking into what is being actually coming in about the primary applications granted for visas. And you can see by the percentages here, the change. So chefs apparently in a high demand. Medical officers, no, really low. Motor vehicle mechanics, really low. Software engineers has gone back a bit. Cafe and restaurant managers, well, we need a heap of those apparently, 79%. Cooks, we need heaps of cooks apparently. Fucking shortage of cooks, 132%. IT business analysts, nothing. Registered nurses for aged care, 82%. NDIS, all paid by the government. That means that there's no productivity. It's a stimulus. It's really a form of stimulus, actually. I've got nothing against people that age nurses that support the economy and everything else, but the issue is that there is so much money going into it that it's nearly to the point, it probably is at the point where it's not regulated. Marketing specialists, 38%. Diesel motor mechanics, negative, 7.9%. Isn't a whole economy nearly like minerals? 140% personal care assistant, NDIS. Accountants, 32. Welders, first class. Apparently you don't need welders for the construction industries and building houses. Documents, yeah. Whoever's coming in here, there's been a reason. I was trying to look at it for you, but it just showed that the majority of people that are coming in about the skilled labour, 80% of it wasn't skilled, or something similar to that, off the top of my head. And the rest is families coming in, so they're unskilled. So the possibility they can't speak English that well, or can't speak English at all, and will go straight on to welfare. And then the people that were coming in, apparently they were high desired, and no one is employed. So then they go straight on to being Uber drivers, taxis, this type of work, which is really what we need in this economy, isn't it? So here's another one from Tara. No, this wasn't. And it just shows you the main barriers to starting new housing developments. So the red is June, March 2025, and that was June 2024, so last year. So saying delay in permits is the main one, and construction costs. So that was all inflation. So that's all from COVID. It's all from shutting the country down for 3 years. That's the reason we've got inflation. So whoever was up for that, you better take some responsibility. Labour availability, that comes down to, if you want to go into one of the videos, but it's quite long, so you need to bear with it. That goes back to not training apprentices, not training the people in this country. Delayed in permits. So they're raising this as being the biggest thing. Unfortunately, that as soon as you do shortcuts, what do you have? You have poor builds. then what happens to the quality of the housings in Australia? And this is like the majority of investments is housing in this country. So imagine poor bills, and you're paying, what's the median house price now? $1 million, and your investment falls apart. Insurance claims, car theft, 2025, Victoria, skyrocket. What's going on in Victoria at the moment, mate? Might be an issue with immigration, especially the type of immigration where you're not vetting people properly. Or there's people who are just not getting directed. I'm actually getting to the point where I think there should be a rule right now that as soon as you turn 18, it's compulsory, and you need to go into the Australian Defence Force and do 1 year or something like that. That's my actually suggestion right now. It should be rushed through Parliament. Mandatory. It's the only way to stop this. It's the only way for you to, like, if the parents can't do it, you be damn straight these people in the military forces will pull you into line. So here's the Australian hours worked, the market versus non-market. Look at this non-market, market. So non-market, as far as I know, is government jobs. So tax money, right? Market. Non-market. So non-market's supporting the economy at the moment. But who's supporting the economy? Your tax and royalties. What does that mean? Well, it means GDP is going down. It means the country is going down. Hardcore. Real housing, disposable income per working age adult. So here, these spikes, that was during COVID. Everybody's locked down. Everybody wanted to be locked down. Everybody wanted the vaccinations. Everybody's scared shitless. They victimized people. You couldn't protest it, but they let the Black Lives Matter protest, didn't you? But you couldn't let anybody else protest. And right here, you gave out free money for nothing. You can't just give out free money for nothing. And then out after that, everybody to go back to work, and boom, look at those savings going down, and high inflation and everything else. And it's had a little bump recovery, and now it's going back down again. So that's concerning. Now, rates have gone down for a bit, but how long can they go down for? Next one is day-to-day government spending as proportional to GDP. So you don't want the government spending to be up so high, because it's just fucking skyrocketing. So the government is stimulating the economy. This is quantitative easing. Quantitative easing. QE. Scary shit, mate. Look at this track record for so long. And then that. If you were in the process of creating something magnificent in this country, maybe you could afford that. But what are you doing? Like, small companies aren't supported. Okay, I've got to continue on. Starting to rant, starting to spit chips. Oh, we already looked at this one. Okay, this is Senator Roberts, and this one goes for an hour. So, and he's establishing a very important inquiry. And there's a whole heap of information after that. So, go get yourself a cup of tea right now. I'll just wait a few minutes. We'll listen to a bit of music, because you want to sit in and listen to this. Maybe you haven't listened to this before. There's something you need to know about. So I recently found this music, I'm enjoying it. It's quite good, eh? Even get yourself a Guinness, mate. Guinness, beer, wine, gin, whiskey on the rocks. Cup of tea. This time of night, sneaky espresso. I love this country. If you haven't been travelling around the world, if you can somehow afford it, one of the best things you can do is go travelling. Do it on the cheap as well, do hostels. Just to get an idea what it's like in the rest of the world. It makes you want to appreciate this place so much more. And it really lets you understand and grasp what we definitely shouldn't let go of. All right, your cup of tea should be ready. If not, well, you have to run back then. All right. So Malcolm Roberts, so he's one of the other senators for the One Nation Party. There's a lot of hate out there, but let's just listen to what he's talking about.
Immigration levels, high mass immigration levels on the Australian economy. We just want the pure facts and the data to be communicated to the Australian public. No labels, no smears, just data and facts. We love data. Over the weekend, tens of thousands of Australians marched asking for an answer on this question. What is this cost of adding millions of people to Australia's population in just a few short years? That's their question. I'll repeat it. What is the cost of adding millions of people to Australia's population in just a few short years? If the data shows that immigration is our strength, then let the Australian people see for themselves. Let those cards fall where they may. I can guarantee what you'll hear from the Greens and Labor on this sensible inquiry. I could almost write their speeches. For them, they're so predictable. If you have a question about whether allowing somewhere around 2.4 million new arrivals into the country over 4 years has an impact on the country, that's a question. If you wonder whether that has an impact on our schools, our rent prices, the congestion on our roads, our healthcare system, our house prices, guess what? The Greens and Labor say that asking those questions makes you a racist and a neo-Nazi, worthy of slurs, smears and labels. The Greens say that asking whether having 2.9 million temporary visa holders in the country right now, taking up to 1 million homes, is 100% in our country's interest. The Greens say that makes you a racist and a neo-Nazi. Welcome to millions of Australians that you're tagging as racist and neo-Nazi. The Greens and Labor are lying. They are scared of the conversation because the facts are devastating. The facts. So the Greens and Labor try to shut down the conversations, smearing everyone as a racist, neo-Nazi, a xenophobe. So every time you hear Labor, Greens, and even some Liberals try to shut down this conversation, calling anyone who loves this country a racist, remember what we're actually voting on here. This is what my motion proposes. I am moving that the following matter be referred to the Economics References Committee for inquiry and report by 1st of May 2026. The terms of reference specify, and I'll quote, the impact of high immigration levels on the Australian economy, with particular reference to home prices, rental prices, and rental vacancy rates. B, the wage pricing index. C, the inflation rate. D, labour productivity growth. E, the accuracy of government projections on immigration numbers. And F, any other related matters. That's it. No emotion, no judgments. We just want the facts and figures so the public is informed. So I'll read that again. The scope, the impact of high immigration levels on the Australian economy with particular reference to 6 specified factors. If you want to argue for the current program of mass immigration, show us your data. I say to the Greens and Labor, prove to the Australian people that having millions upon millions of extra people in the country in the middle of a housing crisis and a cost of living crisis is justified, necessary, and makes sense. calling the tens of thousands of Australians who came out and marched for our living standards and to ensure that we hand on a better country to our children, calling them racist is a disgraceful slur. I'll say that again. Calling tens of thousands of Australians who came out and marched for our living standards and to ensure that we hand on a better country to our children racist is a disgraceful slur. Every senator in this chamber should be ashamed to repeat it, yet you will. So let's have a look at terms of reference A. Home prices, rental prices, and rental vacancy rates. This motion is purely about the numbers. That's it. So let's look at the numbers. We know from Home Affairs data that excluding the 300,000 plus tourists and crew, there are 2.9 million temporary migrants in the country right now, known as temporary visa holders. 2.9 million, more than 10% of our population. This excludes millions of permanent visa holders or permanent residents, as they're known. The Bureau of Statistics says that the average household size in Australia is 2.5 people per dwelling. That means on average data, the temporary migrants in this country could be taking up to 1 million houses in Australia. 1 million houses. Let's have a think about the effect that might be having on the rental market. As of July, there are just 38,000 rental vacancies in the entire country. The national rental vacancy rate is at just 1.2%, massively under the 3% rate considered healthy, less than half. In Brisbane, the rental vacancy rate is 0.9%. In Perth, 0.7%. In Adelaide, 0.8%. In Darwin, 0.5%. In Hobart, 0.6%. There's a demonstrable and strong link between the rate of non-permanent migrants and rent increases.
Did you hear that? There is literally nothing available. Near to nothing available. I've also looked on realestate.com.au to have a gander. There's literally nothing available. It's getting a bit concerning, hey? That if you wanted a functional economy, a functional country, people need to live somewhere. What is the agenda here?
I can provide the reference if you need it. So if your rent has gone up in the last 4 years as the mass migration program continued, there are 2.9 million reasons why. Again, I call on Labor and the Greens. If you have data to debate these numbers, put them forward at the inquiry. Don't just label or slur everyone. Deal with the facts. I know it's not easy for you, but deal with the facts. The wage price index. The impact of high immigration is felt on the employment market. Extra retail spending from new arrivals increases employment in the retail sector, partially offsetting the job loss from online sales, which are increasingly being fulfilled through regional fulfillment centres using a high degree of automation. Since the Albanese government was elected, real household per capita spending has fallen 8 points. Australian households have less, a hell of a lot less. Are we dividing the national pie into smaller and smaller pieces because the economy cannot grow as fast as our population is growing? The data suggests this is the case. So let's find out. The bad news in this picture is this. Immigrants provide a pool of labour who are happy to take an ABN, Australian business number, and work fee for service, often meaning low fees and low service. This undermines employment conditions and award wages that have protected everyday Australians for generations. And this is apparently okay with the unions who never question the erosion of wages coming from a large influx of new arrivals into the labour market, the former party of the worker. The evidence for this statement is found in the increase in ABNs during the Albanese government. Hundreds of thousands of new ABNs issued to new arrivals. These people... Want to continue your conversation?
Sorry, Senator Roberts. Sorry, I couldn't hear. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Senator Roberts, you have the call.
Can you address the Greens, please, Mr. Deputy President? They just said that they were trying to block out my conversation.
All right, sorry, Senator Roberts, I didn't hear that. If that's the case, I will say to the colleagues, if that is the case, I just urge people, please, that we all be heard in silence. Thank you. Senator Roberts.
The evidence for this statement is found in the increase in ABNs during the Albanese government. Hundreds of thousands of new ABNs issued to new arrivals. These people then work, issue an invoice which includes GST, then they keep all the money, send a chunk overseas, $11 billion a year chunk, mind you.
I never knew
and then
about
go home
this.
or otherwise turn into someone else, another ABN. The measure the ATO uses is not ABNs issued. No, instead, the ATO uses active ABNs, people who actually submit their BAS statement and pay the GST they've collected. Why doesn't the ATO tell us how many ABNs are outstanding? What a great way of hiding the problem. Cheating the system allows that person to work for less, yet have more. Work for less, yet retain more. They're not contributing taxes. How many jobs How much income tax and GST on those earnings are lost to this scam every year? I would suggest it's in the millions, and the inquiry should ask the same question. And how many people who are marching on the streets to protect the livelihoods of their kids in the future are funding these people? The Reserve Bank.
So if you didn't understand what's going on there, is that they come into the country on these visas, working visas, they create ABNs, or somehow they're able to have an ABN, which then they go out and do work. They then send invoices to whoever's received the work, and they claim GST onto it, so they tax it, so they mark it up, and then whoever's paying the tax seekings, they're paying this tax GST, and that's going towards the government. And then they keep all that and either shut down the ABN, the business they have, or they just leave the country, or they shut that down, don't pay it, so they say it's insolvent or whatever it may be, and then open up another one. And he's just opened up this whole thing that there's this massive front going on about people coming in and doing this, and no one has been held accountable for it. And the only people that are paying the GST and taxes are small businesses. And small businesses are going under left, right, and center. The small business is what underpins this whole country. They can't even get business loans at the moment. I got a neighbor that is Singaporean, and he had to close 2 businesses. He tried to do it, and they just no support. He can't get the right help. Can't get the right help from the government. They don't want to help him at all. Boom, had to close it down. Just multiple examples of that. Struggling everyday Australians, and this shit's happening.
The bank has advanced the argument that low-skilled arrivals reduce wages for our low-skilled workers, while skilled migration grows the pie for everyone.
So on top of that, they're bouncing around the labour laws, because if you had to hire someone directly, they have to obviously, you need to give them, if it's full-time, the annual leave, the sick leave, superannuation, all these other things. You also need to pay them at the minimum employment rate. So you just bring in all these people in, they charge a lower rate, and then on top of that, they're undercutting actual Australians, which are charging maybe a half decent rate. So then they're not getting any work.
Skilled migration. I'm a migrant. I've got nothing against migration, but we have to have it under control and not mass migration. A New Zealand paper looked at this in depth and found the same thing, with the skill level at which the person makes a positive contribution being either a trade qualification or a university degree. The study found the difference in earnings persisted across their entire working life, suggesting language and culture actually matter. And that's what the people yesterday were saying in the streets of the capital cities and other provincial cities. Research from Denmark indicates migrants being paid lower wages persists across multiple generations. Clearly, if a company can pay lower wages or lower contractor payments to migrants, it will. If they need to force them to get an ABN to receive that lower income, it will. And if the ATO lets them do that because this is not being policed, it will. This is a serious issue because the Economics Committee must inquire into it. So let's have a look at labour productivity growth. The government pretends it supports higher productivity, yet they'll never mention migration in relation to productivity. This is despite immigration having a direct impact on productivity through capital shallowing. My colleague, Senator Whitten, is going to address this point in detail, so stay tuned for his explanation of why we need to look at term C in the terms of reference, labour productivity growth. Next, the accuracy of government projections on immigration numbers. This term of reference in relation to the accuracy of government projections on immigration numbers.
So if you just missed, he's trying to raise an inquiry, and no one else has done this. An inquiry to why is this happening? Why is there unprecedented amounts of immigration, well beyond what would seem considered to be reasonable? No one else in the government has done this yet.
Is vital. For the last 5 years, the Australian public has been completely gaslit on immigration forecasts. The Department of Treasury in every budget has released immigration forecasts that were patently wrong, repeatedly. They're either so grossly incompetent in making these forecasts that Australia should be terrified these people are in charge of our economy, or they deliberately hid the extent of the mass immigration program from Australia. In 2022-2023, Treasury said we could expect 235,000 people to arrive under net overseas migration. We got 535,520 people arrived, more than double, 225% above. That's a pretty big error. In 2023-24, Treasury said we could expect 235,000 people to arrive. 445,640 people arrived, almost double. In 2024-25, Treasury forecast net overseas migration would be 260,000. They then increased that to 340,000 halfway through the year. Data indicates the number for the year might be well over 400,000. Finance columnist Alan Kohler of the ABC lays it out quite well. On top of the forecasts, which are already extremely high historically, at least 800,000 more people than Treasury expected arrived to live in Australia in just 4 years. 4 years. That's more than 3 extra Hobarts added to Australia's population over just 4 years, above what the Treasury forecast. That's not the size of the incoming migrant. That is the size of the error. 800,000, 3 Hobarts in error. How the hell can people plan around the country? That's an unexpected shortfall of 320,000 houses above Treasury forecast. The conduct of the Treasury demonstrates the government is unwilling to have an honest discussion with the Australian public about how many people will come into this country each year. That's what this inquiry is for, to lay out the data and the numbers and have an honest conversation with the Australian public about what the hell's going on. That's all we want. And to the people who marched on the weekend, thank you for standing up for the country, drawing attention to this, because these people would not be interested if it wasn't for you. Thank you.
Senator, Senator Sarah Hanson,
well
Senator
done.
Hanson Young, Senator Kenzie, because she did pop up before you. And I'll come back this side of the chamber.
As you're saying, one of the main things at the moment, the reason why this is coming to light, and actually the reason why these other people are showing up to try and give their, well-formulated arguments to why you shouldn't have this, is because of the rallies and people getting out and walking and saying there is an issue, we are not happy. But just listen to these people and their arguments in response to him wanting to open this, what would be considered a reasonable inquiry.
I wish to contribute to this discussion. I'm appalled that after the displays yesterday of members of far-right neo-Nazi groups, of sovereign citizens decrying that the cop killer, Desi Freeman, was somehow some type of martyr and hero, that we get into this chamber today and hear that rubbish from One Nation. I mean, I'm sorry, but there are 2 dead policemen. Their families are suffering.
They've gone completely beyond what is getting debated at the moment, and they'll jump straight onto your emotions instead of debating what needs to be done. So I'm just going to move past that. I just got no time for that moment. So move beyond that, and let's actually listen to some constructive debate.
The relevance, because we have very terrible murders of 2 policemen before the marches. Had nothing to do with the marches. This is ridiculous.
Senator Roberts, you don't have a point of order. Senator Hanson-Young.
I have not heard the leader of One Nation or any members of One Nation in this place condemn the murder, the cold-blooded murder of those police officers, and condemn the actions of that group.
Senator Hanson-Young, just resume your seat. Senator Roberts, on a point of order, not a debate, I hope.
Relevance. We have condemned the heinous murder of 2 policemen.
I'll take that as a comment. Senator Hanson.
So there you go. They're just moving away, and they want to say the party is no good. The party does all these things. Let's just move beyond this person, because obviously they're not there to debate at all why you wouldn't want to have this inquiry, and let's move on to another senator.
We often speak in this chamber about economic growth as though GDP alone tells the story of our nation's success. But GDP is not a measure of whether young Australians can own a home, start a family, or build a secure life. It counts money changing hands. It counts population growth. It doesn't count the stress of housing insecurity or the heartbreak of delaying children because you just can't afford a place big enough to raise them. When the fundamentals of ordinary life become unattainable for the next generation, economic policy is failing at its most basic purpose. Over the past 3 years, Labor has brought in over 1 million migrants, and unless there is respite, it will approach 2 million in 5 years. This includes 536,000 in 22-23, the highest intake in our history, 446,000 in 23-24. And to put that in...
So just to stop and add in on there was a report completed, and we'll listen to that later, that the highest amount you should go to is 220,000 per year. 220,000.
Into perspective, we've added the equivalent of the entire population of Brisbane in just 3 years. But we haven't built a city like Brisbane to house, feed, employ, educate these additional people. That is population scale growth on a scale our housing market, our infrastructure, our planning system, our hospitals, our schools, our communities are not prepared for. Even in the 24-25 budget papers, there's an admission that net overseas migration will remain above the long-run average for years to come. And the result is a housing market in crisis, a market that caters for those young people who are fortunate enough to have parents or grandparents wealthy enough to help them out with a deposit. In the early 2000s, the house price to income ratio sat at around 4. Today, that is over 8 nationally. In Sydney, it is among the least affordable in the world, now exceeding 14 times the median wage. It means teachers, nurses, police officers, clerical workers can't afford to live anywhere close to where they work. The median dwelling price to income ratio nationwide has jumped to 9.6. It was 9.6 in 2000 to 16.4 in 2024. Economist Alan Kohler has warned that if the ratio had stayed where it was in 2000, around the 4, Australian families would be paying half as much for their mortgages as they are today. Instead, mortgage repayments now chew up over 50% of household incomes, compared with 36% 2 decades ago. The median Sydney house price has doubled from $680,000 in 2014 to about $1.4 million today. This is not sustainable. It is shutting a generation out of home ownership entirely. And the social impacts go even further. As Ross Giddens recently posed, have we arrested the development of our young? Danielle Wood, Jim Chalmers' own head of the Productivity Commission, has warned that Australia is in danger of breaking the generational bargain, the promise that each generation would live better than the one before. And the statistics are sobering. The proportion of young Australians not yet married has doubled from 26% to 53%. The median age of first marriage has risen from 27 to 34. Among 25 to 39-year-olds, the proportion living as a couple has collapsed from over half to just 1/5. A Deloitte analysis of the census found that more than half of Australians aged between 18 to 25 now even believe they are unlikely ever to have children. These are not just lifestyle choices. These are economic constraints forcing people to delay or abandon entirely the most fundamental decision of adulthood. And let's be honest about who benefits and who loses. High immigration feeds the interests of big business, which wants more workers and more consumers to just keep driving that economy. It feeds big universities, which rely heavily on international student revenue. And it feeds big government, which grows larger with every extra million people to regulate and serve. But the costs of this, so that's who benefits, but the cost of these policy settings are borne by young Australians, locked out of home ownership, young couples delaying marriage and children, young families struggling to pay rent or save a deposit while prices climb faster than...
So just getting on that, if you don't, that's an unfortunate place to pause the movie. This whole thing about the argument is that we haven't got a replacement rate, so we need to bring in migration. But the underlying issue is that we can't even have families. And the worst part about that is not that we shouldn't bring in migration, because it's always positive if we've got the ability, say if our economy is working so well, we build a surplus, bloody oath, bring more people in. But if we're not even having children anymore, it means that the values that we have here that we've created will erode. And the standards can erode as well.
And they can ever possibly catch up on. Every child not born today is another job, another taxpayer that needs to be filled by skilled migration over the next 20 years. We're drifting towards a society where home ownership depends entirely on whether your parents can help you out, where home ownership comes increasingly from inheritance, not from hard work, where the idea of starting a family depends less on aspirational love than on whether you can even afford a house with a backyard. Ross Gittins again has written, a society that tells its young people they cannot buy a home unless their parents are rich is a society that's lost its way. And herein lies the irony of the heart of the debate. We're told we need high immigration because the birth rate is too low. But the birth rate is falling partly because housing costs are too high, because family formation is delayed further each year, because our young Australians can't get on with ordinary life. We're using migration to fix a problem that migration itself is making worse. And that I want to be really clear that this is not an argument against migration. Migration has built modern Australia. And if you are not Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander, then we're all migrants, whether your family came here 5 generations ago or 5 weeks ago. Migration has brought skills, diversity and energy that has made us the prosperous... Chair, I'm finding it.
I just resume seat, Senator Mackenzie.
Could you imagine delivering that type of information, which is seen to be what is wrong with that, and you've just got someone heckling across constantly, and that's pretty loud, really, to get into the microphone of hers.
And colleagues, as much as I'm loath to depress debate, but it is consistent, and I will ask that the senator be heard in silence. Senator Mackenzie.
Thank you, Acting Deputy President. Migration in the 20th century achieved great things like the Snowy Mountain Scheme, but it came with great sacrifice from the migrants themselves, many of whom came here to work, living in camps and dongas while they were built. Entrepreneurial migrants from across the globe have built this great country. And indeed, I was in Mandurah just this last weekend speaking to 2 young men from the Punjab who'd chosen to buy a business in this country town in WA, raise their families, and were excited about the opportunity that our country provided them. And they made a point of discussing with me in this small town conversation about the common values that they shared with Australia, and that not all migrants do share those common values, do not want to see a prosperous, sustainable and sovereign Australia going forward, and that we do need to be careful about who comes to this country, how many come to this country, and where they live. And so having a conversation, a rational, respectful conversation through a Senate inquiry in our Economics Committee, whose terms of reference are quite benign, should be welcomed. And then if you don't agree with Senator Roberts' motion, you can actually bring witnesses to that inquiry, have the open debate. It's public, in a respectful way, chaired by whoever's chairing the Economics Committee today. And I'm sure they'd do a fabulous job. So there's nothing to be afraid of about having this debate. It says more about those opposed to this motion, that they're concerned that there's something nefarious about what is the impact. Let's understand the impact so we can stop having these rhetorical arguments about the heavy migration impact that Labor's imposed on our community. Because I believe that migration must be calibrated to the nation's capacity. Its capacity to build housing, its capacity to provide infrastructure, water, roads, its capacity to ensure that young Australians aren't pushed aside in their own country. Economic growth that drives GDP up while home ownership, family formation and fertility rates fall is growth that is failing the very people it should serve. The question for Parliament is simple. Do we want a country where the next generation can own a home, start a family, get on with ordinary life? Because if we can't deliver the basics, then all of us are failing in the most basic of responsibilities that we have, to actually leave the next generation off better than the last. And then I said in Western Australia at the National Party State Conference this weekend, one of the things that have meant humanity has grown, prospered and progressed over centuries and millennia, we really do have a problem. And we shouldn't actually be scared about having the conversation, no matter how much certain senators detest one nation, right? The actual substantive motion itself is quite a sensible debate that's overdue in this country. Instead, we're turning to high immigration to actually solve the problems of a birth rate so low. There are deeper cultural problems about not being able to just get on and do regular life. We've got to solve that problem. That's the nut we actually have to crack. Let's start first with a sensible migration number, a number that we can actually have the capacity as a country to service so that we're not getting waiting queues in our public hospitals, so that we can deliver high quality public education to everyone, that you actually don't have to wait for an hour and a half in your car to get to work because you can't afford to live near your... I know WA is very different. You've got beautiful roads over there, but come to the East Coast, Senator Steele, John.
Just on that, it's actually not that easy anymore to get around West Australia, especially Perth, on the freeway. During all the time, actually, the freeways are busy. And now people living further and further out the city trying to afford a house with a back garden, just travelling from, say, Rockingham or further, even that, in Wanneroo, not Wanneroo, that's north, the north and south. Peak hour traffic starts at like 6 in the morning. For ages away from the city. And that's the reason why they had to start installing these smart freeways, purely for that reason, that it's so populated now. And we were just dealing with the population we have. We weren't expecting all these people. Yeah, the struggle was real.
If you are living in the peri-urban sections of Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane because you cannot afford a house, if you're a teacher, a nurse, a police officer or a bank teller, then there is a problem. And I'm happy to introduce you to any of these people who struggle with this. We need to make sure that people who share our values such as individual liberty and dignity, every person's equal worth, freedom of faith and expression, including the freedom not to believe, with the right to speak and associate peacefully, values about upholding the law, where we actually have one law for all citizens, accountable to the courts, democratic self-government, laws made by elected parliaments, not by religious or secular codes outside democracy, the fair go of mutual respect, tolerance, empathy for the disadvantaged, and equality of opportunity for everyone, the values around English as our unifying national language, equal opportunities for all regardless of where you live, your ethnicity or your national origin. Those who share these values and who want to help build a safe, sustainable and prosperous Australia should be welcome. But those who denigrate and despise those values, we should have the right as a country, and indeed a responsibility to the next generation, to say, no, you are not welcome here. In a country as developed, welcoming, kind and rich as Australia, we're top of the pops of people from all over the world who seek a better life for their families. And so it is beholden to those of us who hold the government benches, the immigration portfolio, who get to make these decisions, to make sure that the people that we do welcome in to help us build this country share those values, because we have the opportunity to have a choice. We want people who love our country as much as we do, who believe that nation statehood is a thing. Globalists, we don't want so much, because to be a patriot of Australia, no matter where and how you've come to this place, like the young men from the Punjab I spoke to in Mandurah on the weekend, we actually want to welcome those people, and those who don't share those values can go try live somewhere else. So the National Party will be supporting Senator Roberts' motion so that the Economics Committee can actually examine.
Brilliant speech. Absolutely brilliant speech. And then we got another one from the other side, just talking garbage, not actually been doing a productive debate at all, just talking about feelings and feelings and feelings.
It's about people, and it's about the kind of nation that we want to be.
Senator Scarr has a comment. I'll come to you, Senator Wilson.
Yeah.
Senator Scarr.
Thank you, Acting Deputy President. I'll rise to support in relation to business of the Senate motion number 1. And there is no doubt that there are many people in our community who were extremely disappointed with the sight of neo-Nazis on the steps of the Victorian Parliament, disappointed with some of the signs that were used, some of the chants used by some over the course of the rallies that occurred yesterday. And
so, just on that, I am not at all supporting anybody that discriminates or other ethnicities at all. And I try to understand what and why these people are doing it. There may be a degree of frustration. There may be a degree of they feel they're losing this beautiful country and it's going to turn into a third world country that those people have come from. So it's either that or they're just pure hate, or maybe even this might be a wild thing to say, maybe they're not Nazis, because Nazi seems to be a word that's really thrown around a lot lately, and it's a real good scare tactic for anybody that is not Anglo-Saxon European, to scare them to thinking that we think like that. So this bloke really does.
I say that when we discuss these issues in relation to immigration, they must be discussed in a way that's considered.
And he talks about, just to summarise, he talks about, hey, the Labor Party has proposed a lot and done nothing. So, I mean, look up this debate if you want to finish the rest of it. Senate debates establishing immigration inquiry, and it's on Malcolm Roberts' page on YouTube. So I definitely recommend you go through so you can see he does a very good, and he really spits it at them and says, hey, this is actual proof. And then there's another bloke here that comes on and he's talking about big governments, multinationals, them taking advantage of the country. And also that comes back to one significant thing that fortunately the majority of the people just haven't switched on about, is that we export the minerals and resources from this country and get next to nothing for it compared to other countries in the world. And it's surprising to me how we're all not mega wealthy. It's just, yeah, that part really surprised me. It surprised me how all education isn't free, how everything else, every utility is cheap, or you don't have to pay for it. How there's not immense amounts of grants for startup businesses. Yeah, all these type of things. So, and then it progresses on his speech. And then this one in here is from the other side. And she's giving another one about how they all hate, especially one party hates. She's an immigrant herself. It's been here 40-something years. There was something about her. I've listened to the whole thing, but there was one thing in particular that I felt a bit gaslighting. And let's just listen.
The 1st of September, a day to celebrate our unity, diversity, and our resilience. And why wattle? Because there's over 1,000 species of wattle, and wattle is one of the most resilient plants in our landscape.
She's talking about a wattle. There's a National Wattle Day. Mate, I never knew about that one. Does anybody actually know about that day? Just, yeah, carry on.
It can withstand fire after fire after fire, and it blooms. It comes back stronger. And it's a bit like the story of waves and waves of migrants to this country. Since World War II, every wave of migrants from the Greeks, the Italians, the Jews, the Vietnamese, and now the South Asians, for those, that's Indians, Sri Lankans, Malaysians, people of color like me, have had to be resilient because they've all encountered xenophobia, all of them. But you would...
This is the catchphrase they like to use. Poor me, catchphrase xenophobia. Really, this shows how ignorant you are. Anybody that's come to Australia has had a hard time because You are a minority. And this is what makes Australia so great, and sometimes, even though it's so harsh, and what makes you so strong and resilient. But also, I think this is also gaslighting to say that we do hate them when we don't. As long as you adopt the values of this country, no issues at all. No issues at all. And if you have some values that we think that are good, we will adopt them. But yeah, let's listen.
I think that over this passage of time that we would evolve, we would get better as a country. And I do truly believe we are better as a country. But in this chamber, some days I have to question that. And today's one of those days. If there was ever any doubt that the coalition, the Liberals and the Nationals, have moved to the hard right, that was dispelled today by their actions and their words today. For years they've been flirting with the fringe. For years. But today, they got into bed with that fringe. And I've seen this movie before. I've seen this movie play over and over again. My sister, Senator Stewart, First Nations woman, knows exactly what I'm talking about because First Nations people have had to endure this since colonization. It's so normalized for them. It's not normalized for me.
So
it's not normalized for me. It shouldn't be normalized for any migrant in this country.
To anybody pre the South Asians, we're all a particular type of people.
Cultural diversity is under attack. It's under attack all around the world. There are some places where migrants, even though they've stayed in
cultural diversity, as in anywhere where the country is under threat.
Their country of birth, lay down roots, raise children, are being detained and locked up. Some are being deported. Some are being deported. Now, that
what have they done to be deported?
Immigrant sentiment may have been normalized once upon a time in our history. That history wasn't that long ago. It was completely normalized when the White Australia policy was operating in this country.
Not that long ago. It was a long time ago. And you really need to discuss the white history policy, and I will talk about that later.
Now, that was revoked in 1973 by a Labor
1973.
And since then, successive governments, Liberal and Labor, have actually embraced multiculturalism. It's been a pillar of our national economy. Multiculturalism is now woven into the fabric of our country. So once upon a time, it was probably okay, historically, to attack diversity. It's certainly not okay now. Not when 1 in 2 Australians have either been born overseas or have a parent who was born overseas. I'm not here anymore to...
Look, you just stop it. Seriously, stop it.
...to justify my existence, to prove my Australianness, to constantly wonder whether I belong or whether I'm pretending. I am here. I am Australian. I am a member of this federal parliament. So I don't have to prove to any of you over there that I belong. I belong, is what I'm saying. And I stamp my foot down and I say I belong. And I will wave that Australian flag. What I saw on the weekend was a betrayal. It was disgusting to see what they did to the Australian flag. The flag that our diggers fought under against Nazis.
Boom. That one right there. Our diggers. For me, I don't feel you have the right to mention diggers. You're not born in this country. You do not represent any of the ethnic people that made up majority of the diggers. Shame on you for mentioning that. Should never have said that. Yeah. And let's look at that as well. So let's get a bit of music going again. Here we go. So I'm asking Grok, give me the ethnic makeup of Australia. So as of the recent 2021 census, shows that the ethnic groups of Australia are Anglo-Celtic Australians, Indigenous Australians, Asian Australians, European Australians, Middle East and African countries, such as Lebanese, Sudanese, Somalia, etc. These particular people are particularly in Sydney and Melbourne. What's going on in Melbourne at the moment? So the makeup of that from the 2021 census says that English people are 33%, approximately 8.4 million people of Australian, 29.9%, which is identified as Anglo-Celtic or mixed Australian heritage, which is 7.6 million. Irish is 9.5, 2.1 million. Scottish, 8.6, 2.2 million. Chinese is 5.5, 1.4 million. Italian, 4.4, 1.1. German, 4 million. Indian, 3.1. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, 2.9. 812,000. Greek, 1.7. Other. So the other is 4.7, includes diverse groups like Vietnamese, Filipino, Lebanese, and others. So this is a pie chart, and if you look at it, so you can imagine like the majority of that there is everything that's Western Europe, especially England, Ireland, Scotland. Now I wanted to know what did the ethnic group look at the top companies, and it shows that it's a pretty good, reasonable, understandable, diverse. So Anglo-Celtic is 85% CEOs, and then you've got other, and then the Asians, and then the Indigenous. So that's from 2021. I guarantee 2020. I guarantee you that's different from the SX 100. So from there, you can look at what's the ethnic makeup of the Australian diggers. The ethnic makeup of the Australian diggers was 90% British Irish. Indigenous Australians was 1.5%. European, German, Italian 7%. Others, Chinese, Indian 1.5%. So this is what it looks like. Other, there. Everybody else, them there, the majority. So in World War I, that was about 400 to 550,000. Yeah, World War I was 400,000. World War II was 550,000. Yeah. So diggers' effort makeup established previously Australian diggers, World War I and World War II, were roughly 90% Anglo-Celtic, British, Irish, 1.5% Indigenous, 7% non-Anglo-European, German, Italian. So the ethnic makeup of Australia from 1911 to 1947 was a population of 4.5 million, 4 million Anglo-Celtic, British, Irish. Indigenous Australians was 2%, 90,000. European, non-Anglican, Anglo-German, Italian, etc. was 270,000. Chinese, Indian, Pacific Islanders, 90,000. And 30,000 for the Chinese gold rush area. You can see the population progressing. So the white Australian policy was abolished in 1973. So what that means is up until 1973, there was barriers for Asians to live in Australia, and it was mainly from Anglo and European that came to this country. And then 1975, we abolished that. And the fall of Saigon led to a wave of Vietnamese refugees. So we said, yeah, this is no good, bring them in. So a majority of white people said, that's no good, bring them in. And then in the late 1970s, Chinese, Indians and other Asian communities grew with the relaxed migration policies. So that was still the ethnic makeup in 1971. So you can see, 1971, the majority is Anglo-Celtic, European, Asian, other Indigenous Australians. So the majority of people are what? Christian, Catholic. So what would be interesting to know is what was established up until that point. Up until 1971, what was established by primarily those people. And as you can see, there was massive early developments of extensive road networks of 800,000 kilometres. The main roads were built, railways was built, key projects, Trans-Railway, linking Port Augusta to Kalgoorlie, that was for the gold rush in West Australia. Ports, major ports already built, Sydney, Melbourne, Fremantle. They were established in the 19th century, expanded in 1971. Airports were already built. Power stations were already built in 1949 to 1974, the Great Snowy Scheme. Power dams. Coal power stations were all built for the 1920s and 1960s. Water supply was all irrigation, that was all taken care of. Communications, telegraph lines, telephone networks, and broadcasting radio stations and televisions in 1956. There was television broadcasting here in 1956. There was hospitals, major hospitals and universities. So as you can see, those people built a pretty amazing country. And then they said, no worries, other people can come in. We built this amazing country. Yeah, we welcome you in. Because surely there's going to be like-minded people like us that are going to come into this country as well. Make it even better. Well, let's jump on to a different note from Leaf. And there's a bit of speculation about Indians coming into Australia. And this ties into something else that's going on in the country at the moment that I'm not sure a lot of you know about. But there's this.
We came across this issue this morning on the Economic Times of India, this massive plan, $500 billion, thousands of Indian workers being imported. The idea is we build 1 million new homes in Australia. I can't believe the federal government hasn't talked about this. Our next guest, Chief Economist and Co-founder at Macro Business, Leith Van Onselen. Good morning.
Yeah, good day, Tom.
Is this real, do you think? I mean, I've had a text from a very senior ex-politician who said he knows this Indian minister. He is respected, articulate, sophisticated. If he's talking about it, it is real.
Look, I'll be honest with you, Tom. When I first heard this, I thought it was satire because it's the sort of thing you read in The Onion or, the Batuta Advocate, that sort of thing. But it was reported in the Economic Times of India. Now, that is like India's AFR. So it's a serious newspaper. And, I'll just say, Tom, if this is true, this is highly cynical and it's disturbing policy from the Albanese government.
Because, I mean, are they doing it, just to help Australians who are struggling to get into a house, or is it part of some plan to dramatically increase immigration into Australia from India?
Yeah, I think so. So the federal government, both the former coalition government at the end of their term and the current government, they've signed 3 migration pacts in India to basically make it easier for Indians to come and work and live in Australia. And India is now our biggest migration source by far. So you know, they are the biggest source nation. And the fundamental reason why we have a housing shortage in this country is because it was running.
So it's really convenient that there's a massive scaremongering against South Asians, for instance, India.
Immigration far too high for too long. And
Well, that's what a lot of the protesters in Melbourne were protesting about yesterday.
Yeah, 100%. So we haven't built enough homes or infrastructure to keep up with it. So the logical solution is to slow it down, right? Slow it down at a sustainable level. But instead, the Albanese government, presumably based on this, has cynically decided that he's going to increase, migration from India to build homes for migrants, which is just crazy. It's the wrong way around. The cynic in me thinks that they're doing it for two reasons. So one of it is so that they can say that they're trying to solve the housing crisis. At a huge cost, may I add, like $500 billion US, Tom. So it's about 800 billion Australian. So it's a lot of money. But also, as Costamaris, the pollster, said recently, he estimates that 80% of the Indian diaspora in Australia votes Labor. So it also makes me think that the Labor Party wants to boost Indian migration into Australia because they'll vote for Labor.
Right. So if I just put all the pieces together with what you just said, so Australia does a deal with the Indian government, says the Indian government, you raise $500 billion US, you bring thousands of workers here, you build 1 million new homes, and those homes can then be rented or sold to more Indian migrants who come from India, and most of whom vote Labor. I mean, it sounds like, to be honest, a fairly vast conspiracy theory, but do you think it might be real?
Yeah, I mean, certainly. Look, the whole thing, as I said, it sounded like satire when I read it. Like I thought, this is from The Onion. So I saw it on Twitter or X first. But then when I clicked on the article and saw it from the Economic Times of India, which is a serious newspaper, it suggested that this is real and it is crazy. And if you join the dots, it does seem ridiculous. Like what we should be doing is obviously slowing down the intake of migration more generally so that infrastructure and housing can keep up and it's at a sustainable level. But instead, they want to basically import migrants to build homes for migrants, which is just chicken egg.
Well, that's interesting. Thank you, Leith. Leith Van Elsen there, Chief Economist and co-founder at Macro Business.
Pretty nuts to think that's actually going to happen, but yeah, stranger things are happening. We did lock the freaking country down for 3 years.
Self-sabotage that I've ever seen in my life. And honestly, this might sound hyperbolic, but I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. I mean, serious. Energy now is the number one existential threat, I think, to Australia.
So now we're just going to have a brief video, 20 minutes actually. And you just got to understand like what actually we're doing to our country from all different angles, from all different levels. We are just ruining this country.
Right. It is. We have jumped the shark so badly on this, and I fear literally for the future of the country if we don't keep going down this road. I mean, I fear for it for a whole bunch of reasons, but I think energy now is probably front and center. So just as a quick, a quick primer in case you knew, the Albanese government has committed to a 82% renewable energy target by the end of the decade, and by 2050 we're supposed to be, so-called net zero, right? So emissions free. Impossible, not going to work. But anyway, and to get to 82% renewable energy target, we've got to basically shut down our baseload power. So our reliable baseload coal generators that have been running for generations on end, which have historically provided us with stable, reliable, and very cheap energy. Growing up, the electricity bill was a nothing burger, right? I remember growing up in Melbourne, and my mum's always very strong about turn off the lights, etc. But we always ran the heaters and all that sort of stuff. We had obviously cheap gas as well, but the energy bill was never an issue. Whereas now, it costs an absolute arm and a leg, and it's just getting worse and worse. And you got to ask yourself, why are we doing this when us as a country, we export 7 times more coal than we burn? I think the last time I said it was 6 times. It's actually 7 times more coal than we use ourselves. And we export 4 times more gas than we use ourselves. And we've also banned even looking at nuclear, despite the fact that we hold about 30% of the world's uranium reserves, and we could be totally energy self-sufficient. But we've banned going down that road, despite the fact that the UK is now going down that road. They've already got some nuclear reactors. They're going to build more. Canada's building more. Everywhere else in the world's going down this road except for us, and I think New Zealand. And it's just moronic. What are we doing here? So I've got some charts here just to show the idiocy of Australia's net zero approach. And I showed some of this last time. I've got some new stuff as well. The chart on the top left plots Australia's carbon emissions against other major countries, right? Now, obviously, Australia's a rounding error. We're about 1% of the world's carbon emissions. We've actually reduced our share from about 1.5% in 2000 to 1.1% currently, right? China is about 31.5%, or at the end of 2023 was 31.5% of the world's carbon emissions. You can see.
So if you can see by these graphs, you look over here, number of coal-fired power plants. This is China, India, United States, Indonesia, Japan, Russia, Germany, Poland, Turkey, Philippines, South Korea, Vietnam. Can't tell who that is. And that's us, Australia. All the way down here. We just export all our coal to those countries. And they're booming countries. Then you look over here, global emissions in US and Australia versus China and India. There's China and India, there's US, and look at Australia, 1.1. What are we doing? Shutting down coal power stations and just using solar panels. And then there's going to be mass pollution in a few years because they don't last forever. And they were doing all these wind turbines to fuck with the birds and the vibrations because they're going to put them in the water. So the whales, you didn't think about that, eh? Protecting the whales and, whatever way they got support in the water, polluting the water and everything else. Because you can't just do the one-off well, drilling for oil or gas. No, you've got to put heaps of these up and all the waste that's going on because they don't last forever either. And then it's not constant. So then you look at the largest economies. China, poof. Coal-fired energy consumption per country, the US. This is over time, yeah. Europe, total Europe, China. And this one here is annual CO2 emissions because everybody raves on about CO2 instead of carbon monoxide. China, all the way here. India, there. There's Australia, mate. It's mental. Just ruined our economy.
See by that chart, but China has just gone through the roof. India is expanding at a rapid pace. Everyone else is pretty much coming down or flat like Australia. I've got a chart just next to that in the middle, top middle. Now, this is by a guy called Robert Bryce, who's a US energy expert. He gave an absolutely brilliant talk a couple of weeks back, which I've taken some charts from there. It's fantastic. All the data from the International Energy Agency, from reputable sources. And it just shows there, this is the top middle chart. It plots, China and India have increased their carbon emissions from the year 2000. China and India combined from 18% to 40%. Australia's cut theirs 1.5% to 1.1%, right? The US has cut theirs, the whole developed world's cut theirs. Us as a rounding area on the world stage, who sells its coal to China and India, you're saying that we must ourselves get abandoned coal, right? This is moronic stuff. China and India have about 1,400 coal-fired generators. Australia has 18. They are expanding their coal-fired generators every single year. I've got a chart over the page I'll show in a sec. China burns 30% more coal than the rest of the world combined. That's the chart on the bottom left. You want to check that? The chart in the bottom middle shows the change in carbon emissions in the 6 largest economies between 2000 and 2023. Look at China and India. They have ramped their carbon emissions like no tomorrow, whereas the developed world has cut theirs, right? This is ridiculous. So we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot. We're going to not use our coal when we literally export 7 times more coal than we use ourselves. At the same time as we sell that coal to China, China and India are also digging up their own coal at an increasing rate to burn themselves. What are we doing here? This makes no sense. Now, the chart on the left, this is from a post that Tarek Brooker is going up in Macro Business tomorrow. But it's not from him, but it shows the new coal-fired power plants that were added in 2024 versus the ones that were shut down. So green is the ones shut down, red are the ones added. You can see that China and India have expanded a massive amount of coal-fired generators, right? Whereas the developed world has basically shut theirs down. So we're all making sacrifices. We're cutting down our coal. Where, by we I mean not just Australia, it's also the other developed countries. While China and India are going absolutely gangbusters, burning coal like you wouldn't believe. They're now spending as much on new coal plants, this is the top middle chart, as the entire world is spending on gas plants. They're adding, they're also building nuclear plants, good on them, but they're not building nuclear plants nearly the rate that they're building coal plants. They're building coal-fired generators 5 times quicker than they're building nuclear plants. Nuclear plants are great because they're zero emission. I've got a chart there at the top right on the coal-fired generation China, India, Australia, etc. It's just Australia is such a rounding error and stuff, whilst these countries are going absolutely hog wild on burning coal. And you've got to ask yourself, why are we committing energy suicide? Right. So I've got some charts, beautiful charts here. The middle one's there.
So just check out that Australians are energy rich. This is how energy rich we are compared to the rest of the world. How rich, how wealthy is the Middle East compared to us? And this is our production versus consumption. So as in what we produce and sell and export versus what we consume. And the uranium we have versus everywhere else in the world. And for some reason, the majority of you people decided it wasn't a great idea to start building nuclear power plants in this country. You wouldn't have to spend money and have all these solar panels on your roof. You wouldn't have to destroy the environment. That is truly destroying the environment, is not adopting uranium power generation.
Again, Australia's coal production versus domestic coal use between 2000 and 2023. We've ramped up production. We're selling it. We're selling a lot of that to China and India. We're consuming less of it. The chart just below that, the bottom middle chart is a longer term chart, goes all the way back to the 70s.
Anyway, you can continue to listen to this one. Let's progress on to the next. And this is just to raise a bit of awareness about progressing on to, and this is really getting a bit of strength from everybody that's in this country and just going, we all should say, who is the right people for this country? And you've got to take in other world leaders and people from other world and go, not everybody is good. I mean, we've got some bad people in Australia. We've got enough of bad people in Australia. We don't need more bad people. We need to deal with those people.
And let me say this in English so you can understand what I'm saying.
I have translation.
No, I know you have translation, but I just want to make sure you get it right. There will come a day that we will see far more radical extremists and terrorists coming out of Europe because of lack of decision-making, trying to be politically correct, or assuming that they know the Middle East and they know Islam and they know the others far better than we do. And I'm sorry, but that's pure ignorance.
Minister Al-Jubeir, I'm not a European politician.
We don't need to hear more about that. This is something recently that happened in Melbourne. There was a march by Muslims and they detoured their approved route to surround a cathedral, Christian Catholic cathedral in Melbourne, and pretty much do a war intentions towards the cathedral.
This is all Shia. Yeah, a lot of them look bizarre. Yeah, it is. This is all Shia. Yeah, a lot of them look bizarre. Yeah, it is.
They decide to stop here of all places. You people need to wake up. So you remember this bloke, Johnny Howard? No one knows about this. He was probably one of the longest serving prime ministers in Australia. And this is his opinion on who we should bring into the country.
every culture is equal is nonsense, because I mean, we have benefited so much from immigration from different parts of the world. What's 50 years now since the first Vietnamese boat people, and they've made a wonderful contribution. And yet we were involved in a war that in that country that was very divisive for Australians and was very divisive for the people of Vietnam. I mean, I'm old enough to know what it was like when the majority of Australians still supported the White Australia policy. And but I think now of what? Sydney's got a Chinese-derived population of 600,000.
As high as that?
That's according to the Chinese ambassador, to whom I spoke earlier today. I don't agree with him on anything, but I think that's about right. On many things, I'm not saying. The truth is that this country has been a magnet to millions around the world because we have produced our own culture. I mean, a lot of it is we got from the British, and we're very thankful for it. But not all of it. We didn't have the class distinction and all that other stuff we didn't want, and was ill-suited. And I think that we made a mistake and it was politically motivated. I think both sides of politics, particularly the Labor Party, saw merit in cultivating support from different ethnic groups. We don't want that.
Particularly when those ethnic groups are unable to leave behind ancient hatred.
Well, that is, I mean, we remember, many older Australians will remember the bitterness that existed in this country based on sectarian divide between Protestants and Catholics, and which of course came from the Anglo-Irish dispute, and of course it morphed into a much wider spectrum, some of the divisions and hatreds of the old Yugoslavia, and some of the divisions that came out of with the Sinhalese and the Tamils in the old Ceylon, now Sri Lanka, all of those differences. We don't want them. And John, neither do most of the people who came from those countries.
Well,
they don't want them either, and they wanted to be new Australians.
And this is what I absolutely support, is that I believe the majority of people that come to this country want a better life, and they want to leave all the bad stuff from their country behind. But there's definitely some bad actors.
In time, the adjective new was dropped because time rendered it irrelevant. But what was wrong with it? What was wrong with being called a new Australian?
The bandying around by the left of terms like Islamophobia. Oh, you're an Islamophobia. Well, we need to be very wary of that. There's been a fair bit of that in Britain, and it turns out that it's covered up some truly
some of those terrible things. But
I mean, real Islamophobia would be a terrible and unwarranted thing. But to use that as a term to shut down debate, to justify
this idea that you can't condemn anti-Semitism without simultaneous
that's my point, really.
Condemning Islamophobia is ridiculous, because I'm not aware of that, and God forbid it should ever happen, that Islamic places of worship should be desecrated. I mean, I can remember when we sent our forces to the Middle East and they were going to come up against potentially military units in Muslim countries, appealing to Australians not to exhibit any hostility at all to Islamic people in our own midst. And I actually said they were a treasured part of our community and entitled to respect, because I was conscious of the danger. Now, I find any attempt at the moral equivalent, or you can't condemn one without that, that's ridiculous. I mean, the fact is that October the 7th, 2023, saw the murder of the largest number of Jewish people since the Holocaust. Nothing at all of that. And it stood in its own right, if I can put it that way, as a modern act of pure genocidal evil.
Yes.
And it should be, and it was a mistake of the government and many people not to condemn it in those terms from the very beginning.
You got to call it out for what it is sometimes. And you got to call out at all sides. You can't just be one, call out all. You got to say, no, fortunately, we don't accept that here. We accept you, but we don't accept that here. And the reason why we need to start to wake up and
Sydney, the bishop who was stabbed during a service, has issued an audio statement for the community and said that he has forgiven the attacker. Bishop Marmari Emmanuel was stabbed on Monday by a 16-year-old. The incident, which was streamed live, garnered major backlash from people all over the world. And now, as the bishop is recovering, in his first message after the attack, he said that
there's an issue. And this is where this is one case where the government better jump on and start making some changes, or this is going to be an uproar, because people forget, and even people from the majority forget, the majority in this country is still Anglo-Saxon, English, Irish, Australians that have been here for a long time, and also Europeans from Christian, Catholic, or no religion perspective, but still have the Christian Catholic values.
Jack, beyond measure. Regrettably, nothing we can say will be back.
Wayne Flower here, reporting for the Daily Mail in Melbourne. Now, today we want to bring you the case of little Jack Davey. Jack Davey was killed in October last year when an SUV driven by Shaymar Zuhara crashed through the front of his primary school, mowed him down and his friends. Jack was the only one to die in that crash. At the time, the community was just in shock at how this could happen. Well, today we came a little bit closer to understanding how it happened, but really the answers that Jack's family wanted weren't forthcoming. What we do know is that police believe that Zuhara somehow hit the accelerator on a Toyota SUV rather than the brake. She accelerated over a median strip through the gates of the Auburn South Primary School and struck those children. Today, she pleaded guilty to a single charge of careless driving. It is one of the more minor charges that you can have of driving offences out there. It's a charge and a sentence today that has caused some discomfort amongst the community and, of course, from Jack's parents themselves. Zahara today was fined $2,000. She was convicted over the crime. She had her licence disqualified for the next 2 years and must carry out a safe driving.
Comes in, mows over children, kills one, just gets a fine.
Of course. Now, the controversy
brings tears to your eyes. Okay. It really does. That's quite painful. This one I'm going to recommend you all have a look at. And this is Thomas Swell's speech. Now, I'm not going to play it, but I think you should look it up and listen to the speech. It's only 8 minutes long. Highly recommend you that. And we're going to close out now because I'm getting a bit tired. Remember this guy? This was John Maffei. And
some few of you may be living an existence of dissatisfaction, maybe even a sense of emptiness, a sense of longing, a yearning that doesn't seem to be filled. Even though you may try with entertainment, sex, and drugs, though I have nothing against those, they don't fill that yearning. You may be waking up every day wanting more, but not knowing what it is that you want. It's those few of you that I'd like to address right now. This sense of longing, this sense of yearning, this sense of not being satisfied is really your loss of freedom. And it is freedom for which you yearn. And you have none in this government. A government of the American people, which started out with the people being free and the government being our servants. It has become the government is free and secret and veiled in darkness. And it is the people that are the servants. You must see the truth of this, your yearning, your longings, your sense of dissatisfaction that cannot be filled with stuff, with cars, with money. No matter how much you have, that sense of dissatisfaction remains. Please, you have woken up to your reality. That is what you are feeling. Wake up a bit more and do something about it. Raise your voice.
So everyone, you need to wake up You need to raise your voice. You need to recognize if you've made a mistake. There's no harm in admitting mistakes, because then you can work on from it. You need to also open your ears and listen to other people to a degree. And you also need to call out bullshit when you hear it. This country is going on a bad trajectory and something needs to be done about it. And I propose to you many things. One of those things is scale back immigration now. Give us a bit of time to build up a surplus and then resume it. Along with this, you really need to look at productivity of this country. We need to stop doing so much in the way of government spending. We need to wind that back. This may trigger a bit of hard times in this country, but I guarantee you there will be a lot more pain if we don't start innovating in this country and exporting more. We also need to get more royalties from our minerals, our resources. We need to start looking after the people that are in this country so that we can look after more people in other countries. Close out with some music. Good seeing you. All right, everyone, this is Spittin Chips. Thank you much for sticking with me. It's been great taking you through this conversation. I'll see if I can make some shorter ones next time, but if you stuck it out this far, good on you. If you want to help me out, you can do some donations down below. Wish you all the best and hope you're doing well out there if you're struggling. And if you're struggling with everything that's happening at the moment, just stay strong. Look after yourself. I've got some other videos here that can help you, or they're helping me. They might help you as well. I'm not a financial advisor. I don't give you financial advice, but I'm doing the best I can to try and safeguard myself to what could be some pretty rough times ahead. All right, it's Spittin Chips. Take it easy.